All right, now we're going to build a Maps application using SwiftUI. And what we're going to do with this end product is we're going to demonstrate annotations, so pins on our map. We're also going to request directions to a new location. And what we're going to do is we're going to then list out those directions on a list view. So let's get started. I already have a new project open, and I'm going to go ahead and start to code out what I want my UI to look like. All right, so first things first, let's bring in MapKit. So I'm going to go to Project Settings, scroll down to Frameworks, Libraries, and Embedded Content. We're going to bring in MapKit. And if you don't do this, you'll probably get a crashing error when you try and run it, because it needs to look for the libraries that have the relevant maps functionality. The other thing we're going to bring in is core location. All right, so we got MapKit and core location, so our two frameworks are in play. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to have a home page and then a sub page that we will redirect to. So our home page will simply have the title, and it'll have the navigation links to the secondary page. So what I'm going to do is make a little folder here, new group, call it content views. Just going to drag content view.swift into it, expand it, add a new file, and there'll be a SwiftUI view. Hit next, and I'm going to call this my map content view. Hit create. All right, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to wrap our text label there. I'm going to keep it because it'll make a nice title label. I'm going to wrap it around a navigation view. All right, let's put that there. And let's put it inside a VStack as well. Close that up too. Just tab over the Hello World text and the padding and change Hello World to map navigation using SwiftUI and make the padding 50. And put in a navigation link. Say destination is my map content view. Put some text label there to represent our button. Say begin. All right, and just put a padding around that of 50 as well. All right, let's give it a shot, give it a run. Let's see what it looks like. I'm using an iPhone 12 Pro. There's our home page. Hit begin. Got Hello World for second page. That's good. And now let's move on to my map content view.swift and actually start coding up a map. So Apple was a little bit slow in getting MapKit ported over from UIKit over to SwiftUI. So you may see a lot of tutorials out there asking you to use a UIViewRepresentable. And right now, even present day, that is still okay to do because there's still more functionality in MapKit that has not been ported over to SwiftUI. Like as of right now, polylines don't work in SwiftUI, unfortunately. And so when you're trying to build out a turn-by-turn navigation app, it can be problematic when you can't see your lines on where you're supposed to go visually. Like we all need that visual on it. But if you were to do this using UIViewRepresentable, you would be able to work with the polylines because they would still work. Because we know UIViewRepresentable is just sort of a window from UIKit into SwiftUI. So it'll take everything in UIKit and it'll bring it over. Well, the focus of this tutorial, though, is to focus on pure SwiftUI. And we'll update this tutorial in the future once polylines are up and running for pure SwiftUI in the hopes that we can actually finish this as a full-on turn-by-turn navigation app. So what we're going to do, though, first is we're going to start by importing MapKit. All right. Now we're going to need a couple of identifiable objects or identifiable structs. One is for our location and really for the annotations, and one is for our route steps or turn-by-turn, step-by-step navigation. So I'm going to say struct and location extends identifiable. And we'll say let ID equals UID. Let name string. Let coordinate be CL location 2D. All right. And now struct route steps extends identifiable. And we'll say let ID equals UID. Let step be a string. All right. And we're going to use these two structs. We're going to use route steps a bit later, but I just want to get the definition out of the way so I don't have to worry about scrolling back up and adding it after the fact. Now what we're going to do is we're going to hard code our location as being the Empire State Building, and then finding turn-by-turn navigation to anything nearby in New York City. All right, so we're going to need some state vars. So I'm going to say state private var home will be CL location coordinate 2D, and we'll say latitude. Now I already looked up the Latin long of the Empire State Building. It's actually 40.748440. Longitude is negative 73.9856664. Now you're free to maybe look up I'm missing an equal sign there, to look up any sort of relevant landmark closer to your home and build out the app with turn-by-turn navigation for your locality. It's perfectly fine as well. If you want to pause this video, I use latlong.net as a website that'll give me the Latin long of any location in the world that I enter in. Nice little tool there, but something useful to work with. All right, I'm going to make another state var. Call region equals MK coordinate region. And we'll say center. Now, I would love to put home in here, but it doesn't, the SwiftUI doesn't like putting variables inside variables that have been instantiated right off the bat. It seems to frown upon that. So I'm going to have to retype this in. So CL location 2D for Latin long of being, again, 40.748440. The long will be, again, negative 73.9856664. Now, the latitudinal and longitudinal meters, this is kind of like your zoom level. All right, so we want to center around the Empire State Building, which is what that Latin long is. But we want to see how far out. Now, instead of using latitude and longitude meters, I'm going to try a different overload here. So I'm going to actually replace this with span and use MK coordinate span. It does the same thing, right? Just sort of like a a distance, a zoom level, meaning like how much of the surrounding area around this point, this Empire State Building, do I want visible on the map? And it's an interesting, it tends to be like an experiment on your part. So it's like CL location degrees for latitude and longitude data, delta. And it is a little bit easier. It's like adding plus or minus 0.05 to the lat and long values above, or whatever it is. I'm actually suggesting 0.05 for each. And then we can play around with that when we're up and running. If you experiment and try just starting off with like lat and long deltas of 1.0, you'll see that, and I suggest you do try it out, you'll see like basically North America, right? And so, and it's nice to experiment with. This delta makes it easier to read. Like when it's kind of like you're saying plus or minus 0.05. And after we run this, I'm going to experiment a little bit more as well. So I'm going to add a couple more variables and just get it out of the way. I want to get my variables done, and then we're just going to pick them off as we write the code. So another state variable, var, I'm going to call it tb location entered or loc entered, and it'll be a string equal to empty string. It's going to hold whatever search criteria I enter into a text field, and we'll say state var root steps. This is going to be an array of root step objects, and we'll set it equal to, just give it like one item in its list. So we'll say instantiate a root steps object, passing in its step will be enter, it'll be like a message to the user, enter a destination. Right, and there you go. So those are all of our variables. Now let's build out the UI and get the UI up and running. So what we're gonna need is we're gonna have, like, instead of this hello world, which I'm gonna get rid of, I'm going to put everything in a VStack. So we're gonna have a VStack, and within that VStack, I'm gonna start off with an HStack. So let's just get rid of this here. And the HStack is going to contain a text field that'll ask, where do you want to go, right? And its text will be $tb loc entered, and next to it will be a button with an action and opening curly, all right, closing curly, and say text go. All right, put some padding around this. You know what? Let's say a padding of 5, right? Just something small, and we could play around with that just to see how it looks. Okay, now that's our HStack. Is going to have a text field and a button side by side. We're going to continue on with the VStack. We're going to pull outside of the HStack there and continue on the VStack. Now for SwiftUI 2, they introduced the map object, and we're going to call that here. So we're going to say map, and there's a bunch of different overloads. We're going to take that second one, coordinate region and annotation items. I don't need annotation context, so I'm going to actually rip that out, but I'll just take it to save some time. All right, so we're actually using this. So map coordinate region will be $region, so the region variable we created just above, right? That region variable. Now annotation items, I pulled that in because I want to jump in and drop a pin as well, and we already defined our annotations. So, or we did not. So we missed a variable here. Let's define some annotations. So annotations are our drop pins, right? And so what we're going to do is just going to add a new variable here for annotations. And annotations will be an array. So I'm going to say at state var annotations equals, open up a square bracket for an array, instantiate just one annotation here, like just one map pin. So we'll say location, we'll instantiate location, and so name will be Empire State Building. Coordinate, we're just going to instantiate another CL location 2D object, Latin long. So again, same idea, 40.7484440, long negative 73.9856664. All right, and so now we can actually take it and put that annotations variable here under annotations. All right, just to make it happy. Now, one last thing, let's drop a pin as well. So, to clear up this error, open up a curly and closing curly there. We're going to instantiate a map pin. Coordinate will just be item.coordinate, but really what it's missing here is we need to have, and it's going to loop through our array here. So when you say item in, there we go, and now we'll say item.coordinate. All right. Let's specify a size for this map. So we'll say .frame. I'm just going to hard code it to be width of, let's say 400. You can always play with this after. Height of 300. If you want an alignment, you can put one in. I'm going to leave it out. And let's give it a run. See what we got. All right, so let begin. And there you go. You now have a map pin centered on the Empire State Building. You have a text field and a button ready to go. And now all that's left is to request some directions. All right, now that we have our map up and running and displaying, let's make use of the text field and get some directions requested from the Apple servers and then displayed here. So we're going to create a separate method to do this, and we're going to put it just outside body. So it's going to make sure I get the right matching. There's the matching curly. I'm going to create a method called find new location. So func find new location. And button will say find new location. So we'll say let loc entered text equal tb loc entered, and we're gonna request a geocoder object, and the geocoder object, its purpose is to actually convert between the text that's entered by the user into a lat long. So we're gonna say let geocoder equal CL geocoder instantiated, and we're going to then pass in, so we'll say geocoder dot geocode address string, and we'll pass in loc entered text. And here's the thing, so completion handler, so this whole approach is going to be a completion handler inside a completion handler inside a completion handler. It's kind of funny that way, but you have to be very careful in how we do this. So we're going to make a request for the location based on the text that's entered, and we're going to wait and until the results finish, and we'll process we'll process those results inside the completion handler. So I'm just going to open up, just trying to make space so that it looks like, and before I forget, and since we're here, okay, so we did define new location. So what we're going to do is open up a curly. I'm going to put the closing curly next to this round bracket, just so I don't forget. And I don't like that it's killing off my indentations there, because I value having lots of coding space. And now inside of it, the arguments that we passed in here will be place marks, comma, error, close the round bracket, void in. Now we could do a check for, if there's an error, we could say like if error does not equal nil, just print out like, to the console, error at geocode. All right. And otherwise, continue on. All right, we need to have curlies around our ifs. Otherwise, continue on. And now what we'll do is, so what'll happen is that when you make this geocode request based on whatever you type, what's going to happen is that it's going to send back a list of stuff. So if I search for, say, Krispy Kreme, it's going to send me back like 10 Krispy Kremes, right? Now, what you could do is you could expand on this and have a list for you to say, choose which Krispy Kreme. I'm going to just pick off the first result that comes back just for simplicity's sake and work with that. So what I'll do here is say if let placemark equal placemarks dot first, and open up a curly, and let's close that curly as well. Now let's because the result, as you can see here, is an array of place marks really, and we're just going to grab the first one, and let's make it happy putting a question mark there. And now we're going to convert that place mark, or we're going to extrapolate the place mark's location. So we'll say let coordinates, which extends CL location coordinate 2D, equal place mark without the S dot location dot coordinate. All right, so we'll extrapolate the coordinate from it. Now what we're going to do is set up a new region variable. So say region, or we'll actually refresh our region variable by saying equals MK coordinate region center. Well, actually, there was an overload right there I wanted. Let's see if I can steal it there. There, center and span. Center is coordinates. Span is MK coordinate span. And we'll just use the same delta of 0.05. All right. And we're going to add this to our annotations. Let's fix the unwrapping. So we're going to say annotations.append, and we'll say location. We'll instantiate a fresh location. Name will be placemark.name. Coordinate will be coordinates. Okay, so we're going to add it to our annotation array. And let's make the unwrapping happy. Now, we actually have, now what happened here is that at this point, it'll just recenter the map, all right, on the new location. So if I search for JFK Airport, it'll just redirect to JFK Airport. What I want to do now is actually find directions from the Empire State Building to this new location I'm searching for. So I'm going to use the directions.Request object, the MKDirections.Request. So let's calculate those directions. We'll continue on here. So what we're going to say is let request equal MKDirections.Request. We'll say request dot source, so the starting point, is equal to MKMapItem instantiated with a place mark of, and we're going to instantiate a fresh MK place mark with the coordinate, and well, I'll say coordinate of home, which I defined above as being the Empire State Building. Address dictionary, I'll say nil. So we have our starting point. Our destination, so request dot destination is equal to MKMapItem as well, instantiated with a place mark of MK place mark, passing in coordinate of coordinates, address dictionary, nil. And we'll say request dot request alternate routes. And I'll set it to false. I just want one route. Just give me the route. And request dot transport type will be dot automobile. So we'll just do car directions. All right. And you could throw in like buttons or a picker, formerly known as segmented control, which is what I'm about to say. Asking the user what type of directions they want, whether it be bike or car or transit or whatever. All right. So I have my direction request object. Let's feed this in and actually make a directions request. So first I'm going to say is let directions equal MKDirections instantiated, passing in the request of request. And we'll say directions.calculate with a completion handler of, and so now this is a completion handler inside a completion handler. It's kind of funny. And so I'm just going to say response, comma, error in and so at this point, if it enters this, it has a list of directions to this. So all we're going to do is we're going to update our route steps array. At this point, I would update polyline information if that was up and running at this point. Hopefully, I can update this tutorial in the future and add the polylines, but I would do that here as well. But for now, we'll just grab the route steps. So we'll say for route in response dot routes. So just grab me a route. And inside of it, I'm just going to reset my route steps array. So self.route_steps is back equal to an empty array. Just going to double check my, let's see here what we need. All right, yeah, I was missing a comma, or was I? Just going to rewrite. I think I have too many brackets here. So route for route, I'm just gonna retype it. Route in response dot routes. There. That's all right. Now I made it happy. Very picky for loop there. All right, so I've emptied out my route steps array, and I'm just gonna update it by saying for step in route.steps. We'll say self.routesteps.append and instantiate a fresh route step object, passing in step, which is step.instructions. All right, for now, that's good enough until we can get polylines up and running and add to it. It's going to clean up my extra empty lines here. All right. And now, so we have we're basically done. At this point, we want to display our route steps, but we need to add a list to our SwiftUI view. So I got to scroll up back to where I define my map. Just add one more item there, a list for route steps. R in, and we'll just say text. Let's use simple text of r.step. And that's it. Let's give it a run. Let's see what happens. Hit begin. So we have a empty list here. We have our pin on top of the Empire State Building. Let's make use of our text field. Where do you want to go? We'll say JFK Airport, NYC. Hit go. It says error at geocode. Now sometimes it can get very picky. There we go. That's better. So now it's centered on JFK Airport. It's going to give me directions here to get to JFK Airport by car from the Empire State Building. So there you have it. Now you have the ability to do your own little mini turn-by-turn navigation app in SwiftUI. Until the next tutorial, take care. Bye for now.